now like to welcome Thomas Magnuson, from the President of the International Peace Bureau, to the stage. Thank you, Thomas.
President Higgins, distinguished audience, peace activists. First of all, thank you for this very beautiful music that put us in the right mood for today. I am co-president of the International Peace Bureau, so it takes two persons to run an organization, but only one person to run a country. especially if that person is the first elect anti-war president. And knowing the record of President Higgins for his work for justice, for peace, and for solidarity, I think that IPB has come to the right place tonight. And thank you very much, AFRI and the Irish CND, the two Irish member organizations of the International Peace Bureau. I think that all good things are three, and President, distinguished audience, and peace activists, all of us, and also the program for tonight. First of all, honoring Sean MacBride and the ceremony for the Sean MacBride Peace Medal. Secondly, to listen to President Higgins, the first laureate to receive this Sean MacBride Prize in 1992. And of course, this evening also the announcement of this year's Sean MacBride Prize. And now I will take 1, 2, 3 steps aside to give room for the main speaker for tonight.
Rúnig in a róta sa gúniúis le an géitáil sias is mín lam a bhuice sa gháil a sachtan cyrraid tíocht gan acóid an acóid cilúrach seo agus muid tríslú le berthan a bhfuil an túfós buinte amach acu in i bháin san is siocóineach san ceartan an duine. Is gmála sin is ítach acóid mar seo chosnú le ceol don stá gur míle má. General Secretary and guests and very many friends that I know for so many years in the project of making the case for peace. It's a great pleasure to be with you, and it's an honour to have been asked to present these medals this evening. It is 20 years ago since I received the Sean MacBride Peace Medal on the 30th of August 1992. I checked my book about what I said at the time, and I gave a speech at the time. I was presented with the award by Brogrand Harlem, who had a great record of peace building and disarmament. But I also, when I decided to title my own remarks on that occasion 20 years ago as Building the Mind of Peace, I think I was moved by the fact that the founder of UNESCO said, wars begin in the minds of men, and he meant it generically, and peace must be created in the minds of men. And I'm very glad that we are all here. And first of all, the first thing I want to say is to honour Sean MacBride. Leachtas na hÉireann ag Daibrig Gudin Bogna Conceal Umla Ersan Shirkona. President as he was of the International Peace Bureau from 1974 to 1985. Former Minister for External Affairs, it was called then, and a Nobel Peace Prize winner, joint founder of Amnesty International, and initiator of the World Court Project to declare weapons of mass destruction illegal. It's an extraordinary contribution by one man. I also, when I was preparing my remarks for that time, 20 years ago, for the challenge of building the mind of peace, the full title was The Challenge of Building the Mind of Peace, Asserting the Humanistic Vision. It would be great to be able to say that the argument I made was redundant now. There have been so many wars and so much waste of life and resources and possibilities of the human spirit where conflicts have taken place. I had at that time, I was just after coming back from Rio, where the United Nations Conference on Economics and Development had taken place. And there a new group had come into existence called the Business Council for Sustainable Development. And all the contradictions were in front of me of those communities in the Pacific where the rising sea level would put an end to their lives together as communities, while at the same time the different business corporations were accorded the status of states on stage at the United Nations Conference. 20 years later, again, while we must continue our efforts as always, there were great disappointments in what was promised in sustainable development and what is not delivered. But coming to what I have been invited here to do, I want to say that there was another great contribution that Sean MacBride made, which isn't sufficiently referred to, and that was the publication of the right to communicate, the great MacBride report on global communications, which led to the withdrawal of 2 major countries from membership of UNESCO. And it was simply about the right of every community, the right of different nations and peoples, some nations that are without states, to tell their own story. The MacBride report on global communications was the most important publication in terms of the democracy of the communicative order internationally. It addressed all the issues of North and South, and it was opposed with an absolute ferocity. That is my memory very clearly of it. And therefore, when I was preparing my speech all those years ago, I spoke about the changes that would have to take place, first in consciousness, and then in language, and then in the struggle for the spaces to tell one's own story on the international stage. And that struggle continues. It was a very moving ceremony. I know there were 2 people here who were here, who were with me at that particular time in Helsinki. I think that I spoke too that time about the difference between those who could be able to look at atrocities and be unmoved and those who would be engaged. Great friends of mine, for example, people like Sayonid Sanchez and I, had in 1981 looked at bodies that were dumped on rubbish tips in San Salvador. And I remember well saying to myself, after you have done this in different places, what happens in your life? And you have the choice to pass by. And the world has been passing by the sources of conflict and war comfortably. And there is a very, very powerful statement that I was drawing on. I had drawn in my speech on Noam Chomsky's second lecture. And Noam Chomsky had quoted Jan Myrdal's powerful passage in his book Confessions of a Disloyal European. And it was about being able to look on and live on, alive in the world that was scarred by war, conflict, exploitation, expropriation, forms of humiliation delivered on people. And Jan Myrdal had written, "The unconscious one does not betray. He walks secure through life. But we who are part of the tradition, the Europeans, and to carry on the tradition, we have betrayed with awareness, insight, and consciousness. We have carefully analysed all the wars before they were declared, but we didn't stop them. And many amongst us became the propagandists of the wars as soon as they were declared. We describe how the poor are plundered by the rich. We live among the rich, live on the plunder, and pander to the ideas of the rich. We have described the torture, but we have put our names under appeals against torture, but we did not stop it." And then it ended with a powerful phrase, which is a great cause of reflection in the Western world, I would hope. "Now we once more can analyse the world situation and describe the wars and explain why the many are poor and hungry, but we do no more. We are not the bearers of consciousness, we are the whores of reason." I think in the 20 years since I was honoured by being chosen as the first recipient for this prestigious award, so much has changed maybe in developing consciousness. I'm so honoured to be in the same room as so many people who have spent all of their lives working for peace, and the changes in consciousness that lead to changes in politics and the changes in systems of government that allow the possibility to keep hoping that finally, as I said then, the stamp of humanity might be put on our affairs. There is a difference, too, I suggested on that occasion, between those who are conservative, as they would say, in the narrow sense, and those who want change. I said conservatives exist in comfort by averting their gaze. To choose to know is to risk being presented with a dilemma, and that dilemma, put simply, is that once one knows you can, from that moment live only in the bad faith of guilty silence, or act, many choose not to know. And the people who are being honoured this evening are people who, far from bad faith and guilty silence, have taken great risks and demonstrated great courage in asserting rights. I think that it is extraordinary the way in which they have delivered an authentic humanity for all of our benefit. It's very easy to choose not to know, and indeed our world sometimes exists by people unthinkingly accepting a dominant ideology, of accepting certainties that have no basis even from the narrow perspective of empirically based reason, and certainly have no moral authority to conform unquestioningly to a status quo. The rejection of creeds which were founded on intolerance and extremism, and the active contesting of systems that are unjust, patriarchal, military, capitalist or racist, requires extraordinary bravery, extraordinary moral courage. It requires initially a courageous vision that is prepared to transcend the self in the pursuit of basic human rights. And I think sometimes that when I was speaking like that 20 years ago, that we were in a way farther on in human rights, because human rights have in more recent times been reduced first to rhetoric and then used as an instrument by people to lash each other without authenticity. But today, and to be positive, I'm here to be part of those who honour two brave, courageous women who have refused to be in any sense limited by self-interest, who've been prepared to agitate, that is, to raise consciousness where others would not, to struggle, and beyond both to rage against the inhumanity. And they have chosen to know within their culture, within their society, within their country. It is a battle that has often placed them in considerable personal danger, one that has required enormous levels of self-sacrifice as they struggle to assert their humanistic vision and stand against a cultural hegemony that allows the exploitation and mistreatment of large sectors of their society. It was not easy, it is not easy, It will not be easy ever, and it is that extraordinary version of spirit that informs and creates the courage that enables them to go on. Lena Ben Velmeni and Dr. Nawal El-Sadawi, they have this much in common: their laudable courage, their determination to show us the evil that can emerge from hatred, prejudice and intolerance, their deep abhorrence of the inhumanity that can arise when one sector of society places themselves as better or above everyone else, or those who believe that they have been born into a gender, class, race, religion or ethnicity that is superior to all others, that defies and contradicts our common humanity. These women's commitment to highlighting the consequences that occur when a sense of human empathy and shared solidarity is deprived, lost or destroyed, and their refusal, as I put it those decades ago, their refusal to look the other way, which is the moral dilemma of our times. The refusal to look the other way, to engage in denial, or to simply be part of a larger group that simply didn't want to know. Both women have made contributions to peace, democracy and human rights that have impacted enormously on their own countries. But in doing so, they've ensured that their voices are heard all over the world, as they should. They are exceptional and extraordinary individuals who have brought two unique and distinctive voices to the fight for global peace and justice. And in doing so, they have revealed the possibilities for others, those who are suffering in silence. In her own words, Dr. Nawal El-Sadawi has been, as she says, swimming against the tide all my life. Her dedication to overthrowing totalitarianism in her home country of Egypt and her ongoing battle against the problems faced by women in Egypt has led to imprisonment, to persecution and to enforced exile from the country she fought so hard to transform. As one of the leading feminists of her generation, she has shone an unrelenting spotlight on the role that Western imperialism and the class structure of some Arab societies has played in establishing, embedding and maintaining women's second-class status within those societies. She has undertaken a lifelong mission to dismantle the patriarchal systems and mindsets which have subjugated and suppressed women in many cultures across the globe. And as a doctor, a psychiatrist and an academic, has not only observed but bravely confronted the many forms of oppression which have physically and psychologically perpetrated so much damage to so many women living within unjust and unfair societal norms. As a renowned, controversial and bravely audacious writer, she has also been instrumental in transforming the lives of many people who have been restrained and discriminated against through patriarchal, class or cultural oppression. Dr. Sadawi's outspoken activism and her transformative courage have been critical in ensuring that the voices of women continue to be heard and that the feminist demand for true equality is someday realised. And now, in her 9th decade, she continues to swim against the tide as she plays her invaluable part in the global struggle for the achievement of an ethical and inclusive society, and that will have the mark of humanity and equality upon it. And today we also honour a young woman who, although 6 months shy of her 30th birthday, if she doesn't mind me saying so, has already made a deeply impressive contribution to that great global struggle for justice and humanity. Communications technology, which I mentioned earlier, and that was the choice in the MacBride report all those years ago. Could it be an instrument of liberation and emancipation available to everyone for every story? Or would it be another source, great fissure of inequality between North and South in our planet? She's used communications. It has been fundamental in creating a world in which the space between peoples and nations and cultures has become potentially progressively smaller. A world where a parochial or insular approach to human rights on the grounds of ignorance is no longer an excuse, no longer acceptable. And thus, when I received my own Peace Prize, as I said, I spoke of the importance of supposing it all went right, of the new technology being there as an instrument for constructing new networks and utilizing new technology to create patterns of influence, magnets for those whose humanistic impulses could not be quenched. That is precisely what Lena Benveni has achieved through her brave use of social media to expose the brutality of Tunisian government forces in what we now know were the final days of the Ben Ali regime. Through her work as an internet activist and a renowned blogger, Lena brought the world face to face with the misery, the deprivation, and the daily injustices of the Ben Ali regime. She enabled people across the globe to make that crucial connection between unjust policies motivated by purely imperialist interests and the daily human injustices that are perpetrated by those policies. In so doing, she created a very real, shocking, and immediate record of the violence and injustice carried out by the Tunisian authorities. Her contribution to raising worldwide awareness of the discrimination and oppression that lay at the heart of Tunisian society is profound, and her courage is even more so in refusing to hide behind a pseudonym humbling, and her contention for the Nobel Peace Prize at the age of just 27 is surely, truly awe-inspiring. Bewaren an at am heen lua me a ver an gedinna voor do shama gile vrida nediv nogdo. Agus is mór an onior comatium a ver an shown you leis an radam a ronna an a dini spreagul a tovatach mar orta leisha. Bert van vishnule na greven facis ar a porte loco an hino tossig gas iadar horsja kanta an den lachish agus na garta dena in a dira agus ar fugan radio. It is a real privilege and a pleasure to be asked to be here and to be part of this presentation. I commend both of these women for their heroic courage. I commend you for your vision and your commitment to building a global society based on equality, justice and respect. Agus Marúchtar an Héireann, and as President of Ireland, I thank all those who have worked for peace and justice all over the world in different circumstances over so many years, and you bind all generations together in the possibility, which is real and which can happen, of putting the stamp of humanity on our shared vulnerable planet. I thank you, both of you, for what you have done so far in ensuring that dreams have become a reality for the people, oppressed people of the world, to whom you are an inspiration. And it will be a privilege to present you with the Sean MacBride Medal. Gurmila.
This fellow is a hard act to follow. President Higgins, thank you. Thank you for your wisdom. Thank you for your presence with us here tonight. And thank you for your eloquence. You know, before I was asked to come here this evening, I was given a special task, which was to purchase a bottle. And it's this bottle of Irish sparkling water, which was specially requested. And I think you had the sparkle. And the bottle is empty. Let me add my congratulations to Lena and to Nawal out there in the world. Congratulations on this very special prize named after a very special man. When my brother heard that I was coming over here, he lives in London, and he said, "Oh, good luck in the land of saints and scholars." Well, I suppose saints are going out of fashion a bit, although I hesitate to say so in this building. But we are in the presence of a fine scholar, and he has graced us with his presence this evening. And I was reading again the speech he gave when he was elected president. I believe that it was with the highest number of votes ever cast in a presidential election in this country. Am I right?
Yes.
Yes. Well, you see.
sometimes, in some countries, the people make the right decision. And in that speech, he talks of the presidency of ideas, which I thought was a marvelous phrase. And if we had more time, which I think we don't, it would be good to know what ideas have come up so far in your presidency. But that's perhaps for the discussion over a glass. I was thinking, of course, of Sean MacBride, as we all were, as you spoke so warmly of him. And, I think he would have approved of this event this evening, and I suppose you could say his spirit is somehow with us. I call him the rebel with a cause, James Dean and the rebel without a cause. Well, this man really had more than one good cause. And I'm so pleased that we made that decision on our centenary year to find a way to remember him at least once a year by giving this prize. And it's certainly a man you can be proud of. I think we're all aware that Ireland is going through hard times. The Celtic tigress is having trouble keeping her stripes bright. But there is a spirit in this country which you only have to be here a day or two and you pick it up. The warmth and the determination, that special Irish combination, which I think will see you through. And I think we see some excellent examples, not just on the platform, but in the audience here tonight, of that spirit. So, trying to keep this short, I only really have one request of the whole audience, and that is that we keep our partnerships with peace, with the peace movements. And I'm talking here to official Ireland and also the people and the civil society of Ireland. This is a global struggle. There is the fate of the planet at stake. We are few, really, who care enough to devote our lives to this work. And we have to stick together. And I think we can do great things, more great things, because great things have already been done in the world of peacemaking. But our challenges are enormous, and we need all the inspiration we can get. And tonight we have had a good dose. Thank you.
Thomas Magnuson has kindly offered to accept the award on behalf of Nawal El Sadawi. And if we can invite you, President Higgins, to also come to the front of the stage to present the awards. Thank you.
Promise to bring it.
Thank you very much, President Higgins, for being with us and for inspiring us with your words.
How are you? I'm really delighted to see you. Some of us go up and some come down. You've gone up. Well done. I'm delighted. Really delighted. It's a great privilege to have you here. I'm delighted. Really. Well, yes. His baptism.
I'm delighted with dignity to the office and pleased to David Leighton in his own life for the future. He's like
Yeah, we must rearrange that for us.
Warm memories of being there. 92 President. Thank you for this evening. It's wonderful. Great to see you.
Thank you very much for the truly inspiring. It's truly inspiring. Thank you very much.
Very well.
Yeah, we just move all those, chairs and stuff.
This is Marie.
You have to have a good engine, I think. To that, don't you?
I'm from England, but I lived in Paris actually. I work with the IPB. Truly inspiring. Thank you.
President, would you mind standing
President Patrick McNeville, President
All right.
He's also Superior General of the Congregational Mission and Daughters of Charity.
Thank you very much.
Can we get you a medal, President? Sure.
I'd like to shake your hand. I'm a Galway woman. I was born and reared in your constituency in Galway West, and I was delighted when you were elected our president. And I hope you and your wife will be very happy with yours.
You're drawing a plenty of role on the Northern Africa 3 years.
Yeah.
Wonderful speech.
Thank you very much. I hope you were happy. I'm delighted to be in Turkey.
Absolutely.